Good afternoon, everyone. We are so happy to have you join us today. Um, thank you so much for our very first um, advisor coffee conversation. Um, I am Jeanette Semperville, and I am the executive director for the Massachusetts office. And joining me today are Bottom Line Success Advisors, Diana Martinez, Erin Mitchell, and my former student, Rebecca Ruiz. First, I would like to take this moment to make sure everybody in this room know that we are recording this session, and we'll make this discussion available through our social media channels after this event. Um, so just to give you a sense of who we are and what our goal is at Bottom Line, we support students who are first generation in their family to go to college from low income backgrounds. We ensure that they successfully get into college, graduate from college, and then that they can go far in life as well. So I hope that this conversation provides you with all the opportunities you need to hear from some members of our team as they share their experiences and discuss how they continue to support our students during these times. During this event, we're going to be fielding some questions from the audience. So if you look on the bottom of your screen, you will see the Q&A feature. Please submit your questions and I will go through them and ask our great panelists today so that we can, our advisors can answer all of the questions that you have. So to get us started, I want Diana, Rebecca, and Erin to introduce themselves. So thank you for joining us today, all of you. And I want to hear, like, how long have you been at Bottom Line and what originally drew you to the organization?
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeanette. Hello, my name is Diana Martinez, and I have been with Bottom Line for over a year right now as a success advisor. Before I was in Bottom Line, I was an AmeriCorps City Year member in Denver, Colorado, and I really liked my experience with City Year. I loved working with students, and I wanted to continue that. So while I was looking for a job after City Year, I happened to stumble upon Bottom Line, and I was just really drawn to their work with first-generation students. I'm a first-generation student, and so providing the support that I wish I had had in college was so important to me, and so I applied, and now I'm here.
Hi, my name is Erin Michael. I have been with Bottom Line since January of this year, so almost a year now. I came to Bottom Line because I'm really passionate about educational equity work, and I love direct service. I also just think that college is such a pivotal point in someone's life, and it's like a fun thing to get to be there for people during that. I also was a low-income student at a very high-income institution and faced a decent amount of barriers because of that. So similarly to Diana, like providing the support that I wish I had had during college is really rewarding.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Ruiz. I am a Bottom Line alum. Jeanette was my very first Bottom Line advisor when I attended Doherty Memorial High School in Worcester. So I've actually been working for Bottom Line for about 9 years now. It all started when I was in college and started working as their front desk assistant. And then shortly after I graduated, I became a success advisor. I do this work, I love this work because I was one of these students and I want to be there and give the support, the opportunities that they need that were given to me. So I want to continue to do this work. I love it.
Thank you. It's so good to be here to have this conversation with you all. And I'm so excited to hear just your experience and the answers, and so excited to hear about this. But so my other question to you is, like, if you can think back to earlier this year in March, right? What are some specific ways that you supported your students?
Yeah, so I think the main ways that I've supported my students since March, it's been like a blend of kind of logistical support and emotional support. I think especially in March when everything happened so suddenly, there was a lot of trying to support my students with figuring out, you know, how to move off of campus, transportation, how to get their belongings home, basic needs. You know, a lot of them didn't have access to stable internet at home. So mobilizing like community resources and bottom line resources to help with that. Also, I think it was just really sudden, and it was a huge shock to students. And I think a lot of them were grappling with, and still are grappling with, a sense of loss over kind of the lifestyle and like the home that they had on campus, and, you know, being with them through that and kind of supporting them emotionally, and also just adapting to a whole new system of learning. It's been really difficult for a lot of students, and so kind of creative brainstorming about, you know, how to be successful when sometimes it's a lot harder to engage. So yeah.
For me, my students, it was a big learning curve when everything moved to remote. It was things like teaching them how to use their Blackboard, how to use the different features like on the back end that they didn't know about. It was also the time when professors like, all right, we're not in person, so here's all this extra work. So we had to work on their time management skills, reaching out to professors for help. And then it was also the stuff they were facing at home. Because with the coronavirus, it was like, oh, well, Rebecca, now my grandma has this and my uncle, and I'm really nervous and I can't focus and I don't know what to do. So it was a bunch of emotional support and mental health support that I had to provide. And also making sure that, you know, I referred them to their communities and who was in their communities, who could better support with the challenges that, you know, I really couldn't support.
Yeah, I agree with both what Erin and Rebecca have said. I've dealt with similar situations as well. I think now that we're a few, you know, months from when this initially started, I feel like I constantly see a lack in like motivation or just maintaining that motivation. I think when this first happened in March, when the coronavirus, you know, everything was shut down in March, response was really high with my students. They really reached out because they were just thankful to have someone to talk about everything that was happening. Like I said, it was so sudden. Students who lived on campus had to suddenly figure out how to get home. It was just a lot for them to handle, so they were happy to have someone like me to talk with, and I was happy to be there for them. But I think, you know, as time has gone on, that's been a bit harder too, because I think they're not only dealing with, you know, school, but a lot of them are living back at home, and so struggling to work from home is a big issue. You know, lack of study space. Not all of my students have a desk. They always mention like, I'm on my bed, and it's hard to just pay attention when you learn from your bed. And then also like little to no privacy. Many of my students don't have their own room. They share with siblings, and they've never had it be an issue until now, where like if they have a younger sibling that goes to elementary school, they can't tell that sibling to like, please turn off your computer, I'm in my Zoom class. They kind of have to battle through that. And then a lot of our students also just have, or at least mine, have a lot of outside responsibilities. They don't spend every moment of the day thinking about school. A lot of them work still during this pandemic. A lot of them still have to provide for their families, elder family members and older parents and grandparents that they help support. Many of my students live in multi-generational homes, so they're not the only person to help sort of provide for their family. So it's just a lot all at once.
Yeah, thank you so much for all you're doing to support our students, and especially all the students on your caseload. I want to zero in into with our first year students, if I may. I'm curious to hear, what are some of the hurdles that you see your first year students go through as they transition into college, especially since they haven't gone through college before and having to do this remotely. I'm curious to hear that. Diana, I want to hear you talk a little bit, because I heard you talk about a student that has been working a lot recently. Can you talk about what's happening with that student?
Yeah, so I have a first year student who I hadn't really heard from during the summer, and then right at the end of August, they finally reached out and they're like, hey Diana, I actually had a really hard summer. I had a lot of stuff happen. I actually didn't enroll at all in school. And so I was like, oh, okay, like I think in my head, I've helped students enroll, sort of do the enrollment process a little bit. So I was like, okay, this should be, pretty straightforward, and it wasn't. The pandemic has caused a lot of issues with enrollment. My student had to provide immunization records that were updated, and they didn't have that. So getting a doctor's appointment was really hard, especially with the pandemic. Receiving technology through their school, because they needed to get to campus to pick up the school-provided laptop, they needed their immunization records, but because they couldn't find a doctor, that pushed everything back. And so they couldn't do that in a timely manner. They didn't have an accessible computer. They had ongoing insurance issues with waiving it. The school had a long process for that. That led to some unexpected financial costs. I think when you can't waive school issued health insurance, it's like $2,000, which the student was like, I can barely afford to go to college now. How do they expect me to continue to go here if I have to pay this $2,000 like out of my pocket? Like, that's not feasible for me. They provide for themselves mostly. And so then I feel like I've just been connecting with the students so much more because one, I'm their only sort of contact right now, and sort of just helping them through this process. Their parents don't really know how to do this, and so of course I'm happy to help, but it just makes it a bit difficult when I feel like I only have so many answers and they still need connections to school and they're not even on campus. And so just providing that guidance, I've met with them pretty much weekly. I think we have like 8 meetings logged for this semester, which is way more than we expect any student. And so that's what I'm just trying to do right now, is provide them with that support.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the issues I see with first-year students specifically deal with communication on multiple levels, like with the administration, but also other students and professors. I have a lot of students similarly to Diana, like dealing with issues with financial aid and, enrollment, and it's been really difficult for them to get in contact with those offices. They've called and been put on hold, and, sometimes haven't heard back for weeks, and I've had to support a lot with that. I also think, a lot of students, especially first-year students, they're not coming into college with like an established network at that school. They don't have that kind of social community and like sense of connection to others at the institution, and that's really difficult. I have a first-year student who, in the second week of classes, messaged me and said, how do I connect with other students over breakout rooms? Like, how do I make friends? Like, please help me, and that just really touched me. It was really genuine, because it is hard. I think it can be hard, especially if you're a first year, even in-person school, to kind of like reach out of your own comfort zone and make friends, but it really is so integral to have that sense of community and connection. So, I see that as a real area where students are struggling, connecting with peers and professors, and just really feeling like they're a part of something. And it's sad and it's hard to watch, but also I see students like really making strides, connecting with others virtually, which I'm so impressed with. I find it hard to do that myself. So definitely a lot of issues with communication.
For my freshmen, it's the hurdles are around financial aid. Because, you think your aid's all done, you've checked off the box, you're like, yes, I'm going to accept this. And then they're like, Rebecca, I don't understand. I still owe all this money. I don't know what the school's asking. And the school's asking for like entrance loan counseling, the master promissory note. And it's like, I don't know what any of this is. So, helping them complete that. But it's also having them missing out on, the sense of community when you go to college. Because, you can just, when you're in class, you can turn around and be like, hey, did you understand this? And like, slowly like build up your network and community that way. So it is difficult. Because for me, I'm the type of advisor that's like, oh, you want to join a club? Let's go to the student center. We just go right up the stairs. This is the person you need to talk to. Like, let me know what you think and we'll like come back. So it's a little tricky not having that sense of community. But when we do get back onto campus, I am going to take my freshmen all over campus and show them everything, every club. And, you know, really what I want to do is make up for that last time and really get them engaged in, you know, their college community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to take this opportunity to ask a question from the Q&A feature. Thank you all for asking your questions. But just because Rebecca and Erin, you both mentioned like the relationship and the sense of community that our students are missing during this time. And John Jones asked, like, how has the shift to virtual advising impacted your relationship with students? Because we know we value relationships, so I'm curious to hear from one or two of you just about that. Has that impacted your relationships with your students?
I'm happy to speak to that a little bit. I actually think that I've gotten a lot closer to a lot of my students during the pandemic, which is kind of a beautiful and like unexpected effect of this. You know, a lot of them are going through some really profound mental health challenges, you know, grieving lost family members, having difficulty with like housing insecurity, food insecurity, and through that, they've really had to confide a lot in me. And there have been some very tangible things that I've been able to do to help, whether that's referring them to mental health counseling, just listening, you know, and just following up regularly, referring them to community resources. I think that I've really developed some meaningful and deep trusting relationships with a lot of my students through this because of the challenges they're going through. And I think that they're going to last, you know, beyond this. And I think that that's wonderful.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Erin. And you started talking about resources that you're pointing your students to. And so my next question is, what resources could you use to overcome some of the challenges during this time? What other resources?
Yeah, so there are a lot of resources that I'm seeing a need for. Funding wise, you know, this is a really difficult time financially for a lot of students. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, there was more aid available than there is now. So I'm seeing a need for emergency funding. I've had students facing food insecurity, and sometimes it's difficult to find enough resources for that. A lot of their family members are unemployed. I also see a need for tuition assistance. I've seen a lot of students that have bills that actually go up during this, and they have less of ability to pay, and that is, you know, directly impacting their enrollment. I would love to see us be able to provide some kind of more support in that sense. I also think, on a different note, I have a lot of students who had internships and career opportunities lined up for the summer that they were then unable to do. And I do really think that that kind of career development is integral to, you know, being career ready once you get out of college. And a lot of my students are worried about how they're going to get jobs when they don't necessarily have career relevant experience on their resume. I think Bottom Line has done some really awesome creative things. We've rolled out a micro internship program where Bottom Line itself and some of our partners have kind of done more limited, time-limited projects that they bring students in on and compensate them, like designing logos, things like that. And students can put that on their resume, and that's something they can do remotely. I think bringing partners, Bottom Line partners and stakeholders in to create even more of those opportunities, maybe virtual job shadowing internships, would be just a fantastic resource for our students during this time.
Yeah, I would have to second all of that. Because I had a student who applied for emergency funding at their school, and their school was like, oh, we don't have any more. So it's facing that. So now I'm working with my student to apply for the Persista Scholarship that is run through Bottom Line. So, you know, we just got to get some paperwork done. But I would say during this time, my students, I would have to say internships right now. I have this one student, this amazing student, guys, let me tell you, she's gonna be future doctor. And she's had internships since high school. And when the pandemic hit, she had like a research internship at Vertex, and we were a little concerned that they were gonna cancel, but they didn't. They were nice enough to keep her on. They even sent her a computer to like do her work on. So she's extremely grateful to still gain that experience and build up her network. And also my students are attending all these bottom line events that we're doing. Like we recently had like a men's event. So I have a student who attends every bottom line virtual event, and he will personally reach out to the panelists and personally thank them for attending and taking the time to speak with him. And then he'll write like, would it be okay if we connected on LinkedIn? I would like to, you know, build up our, you know, our, oh my gosh, our professional relationship. There we go. So yeah, students, even though we are in a pandemic, they are still taking the time to build up their networking skills, their experience, you know, to be ready for that, you know, future career that they want.
Anything from you, Diana?
Yeah, I can add just technology is something that I've seen some of my students really need, and that's just come up a lot with the pandemic. I mentioned that first year student earlier. One of the examples is just they couldn't go to campus because they didn't have the immunization records to be there to pick up the school provided laptop, and they didn't have a personal computer. We met a lot on their phone, and that was a bit difficult to do. And so I would, you know, bottom line said like, hey, you know, we might have extra laptops, check in with us. So I did. I said, hey, you know, Efrain works in the bottom line office. I said, hey, do we have any laptops? And he says, of course. When does the student need it? We can actually get it to them tomorrow if they do. And so I was really grateful for bottom line in that. And so I told my student, hey, you can pick it up tomorrow. And they're like, perfect. And so they went to the office, they picked it up, and now we can actually have our meetings on a computer. They can open up their emails consistently. They don't have to worry about formatting on their phone, which is a big issue. So I was just really happy to like have that in bottom line support, supporting us in that way. But I feel like other students, you know, I know it's a lot when so many other students also struggle with this.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And while we're talking about resources, I also want to lift up a question from the Q&A feature. Can one of you, two of you, speak about what resources did universities provide, if any, to students navigating their first year during their pandemic? It's okay, think about it. That happens. We have to think about like how our colleges. Yes, Diana.
I know one of my schools, they already have a first year program that students can attend, that they sort of get a taste of a college course during the summer, and they have a project that they work on a team. And so that's a way that they continue doing that virtually this summer in order to keep that support going, because they know that first year students struggle really like coming from high school into a college course and having no real way to gauge what that's like. And so that specific school kept, or university kept that support. And in terms of my other school, I don't think they had any very specific targeted first year resources. So I think it was a lot of me helping the students find those resources.
That's awesome. Thank you for that, Diana. So I know, you know, each of you have your own caseload, you're working with students, and I'm curious to hear, like, what strategies did you use to keep your students engaged through virtual connections? And maybe, you know, Erin might be like, yes, Diana, I'm gonna try that next week. So just curious to hear about that.
Hi. For me, to keep my students engaged is like genuinely being excited and happy for them, just having this upbeat, happy tone in my voice, letting them know how excited I am just to be speaking with them again, and thanking them for, taking the opportunity to set up a meeting. Also, what I do at the end of our meetings, I'll send them like a quick little email or like a text message, like thanking them and that I can't wait to chat with them again. I know as like the holidays are coming up, I'm thinking of like sending them like a little postcard or like a letter in the mail, like wishing them happy holidays. So yeah, I think for me, keeping them engaged is genuinely caring and showing it. Really, for me, that's how it is.
Yeah, for me it was just providing some space for students to decompress or just speak freely about how they're feeling. I think a lot of times I have a lot of students who really just focus on school with me, and that's totally fine. I have no expectation for them to, speak about their personal life with me if they don't want to. But a lot of students have really had a lot of, mental health issues come up. They've had a lot of familial issues and problems and just health scares come up. And I feel like this is a time where I feel like I can emphasize that in our meetings of like, hey, how are you feeling? Are you okay? Is there anything that I can do to help support you better? Because I think sometimes we forget that our students, have a life outside of school, and that is the best way we can support them as well. And I've had plenty of students rant to me about things that are happening, or rant to me about, professors they're frustrated with, or, arguing with their moms sometimes. And so I feel like giving them that space to process that emotion with me in some capacity just really helps them stay engaged, because they know that they can come to me with that.
Yeah, I think I would echo what Diana and Rebecca have said, and add that I like to, when I am kind of reaching out to students to ask them to schedule a meeting, I like to provide a little list of ideas for things we can work on together. Things like career research, reflecting on what it is you want to do with your life, which is a huge thing that maybe students don't always think to do on their own when they're like kind of in the day-to-day, working on resumes, cover letters, taking a look at their degree audit online and figuring out what classes they should register for next semester, providing that list. And then also like in the meeting, I like to take 5-10 minutes at the end to just chat. I think of a fun question like, what are you watching on TV right now? And we talk through that, because we always have a lot to say about that. And it's just a way for us to get to know each other a little better. And every meeting we get to know each other a little better and better. And it comes easier and easier. And I think, like Diana said, that's a way for me to show that I care about them as people. They're more than a student, they're a person.
No, that's great. That's great. Thank you all for sharing and for the work that you do. I am going to go to some of the other questions on the Q&A. So folks, if you have additional questions you want to ask, please ask them, because I'm going to go through them to have our wonderful panelists answer. So I'm curious to hear, Tim is curious to hear, like, are the demands on your time with your students greater now, or do you have more time now that advising is remote?
I would say it depends. It depends on their student and their situation. Because, right, I have students who now have to work, take care of family members. So they're really, really busy. So I can talk to them like once a month. But then I have other students, they're like, oh my gosh, Rebecca, I saw this micro internship and I have to apply. Can you please look over my resume again? So it really depends, because I have students who are like, yep, we'll meet once a month. And then I have students like, Rebecca, I need to meet with you right now again. Like, please, like, we talk about this. So it really depends. Some days are a little slower than others, and other days can be really, really busy. So it just depends.
Yeah, that's good. Not sure if Erin or Diana want to add anything to Rebecca's response, but it's okay because I have another question for you too. All right. Are you struggling? I know we talked a little bit about resources that you need, and you all mentioned great ones for our students, but curious to hear, like, if you're struggling to find resources that you can use while you're working online. Oh, what would you say?
I think what I found really difficult with resources right now is that some campus offices, I'm assuming, are just overwhelmed with the amount of students who probably need that same type of support. So whether it's financial aid, which I feel like is a big one, career services. And so I think when I direct students to those resources, a lot of times they come back to me like, Diana, I really, attempted, but it sounds like they didn't really give you much more information. And so I think I struggle when the one resource that usually is really reliable and right now is not because of the pandemic, then they come back to me and then I'm like, okay, well, now we have to think outside the box because, historically it really hasn't been that case. And so I think that's where I struggle is when the first resource that I know has been helpful in the past that isn't now, they come back and it isn't, and then we have to go from there.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anything to add?
I would say for resources, something that was just recently implemented was the mental health support that Bottom Line is providing for free to our students. So, counseling therapy, which I'm so excited about because, some therapists don't take certain insurances or like they're really, really busy. So that is something that I can't wait to bring up to my students and be like, hey, let's make an appointment for this. We've talked about this. Now it's time to do it. So like, I'm so excited for that piece.
Yes, no, that's great. Thank you for mentioning that. And we're able to provide that support thanks to a generous funder who was able to help us to provide that for free to our students. As we know, this is a hard time for every single person, and especially for our students. And our students are going to be able to sign up to get the support that they need. It's unlimited sessions with a therapist. They're going to begin to sign up for that, I believe today. They can start signing up on our website for that. So we're so grateful for that opportunity and that resource that we can provide to students. And one of the things that I want to highlight, and I know some folks talked a little bit about it, like our students, a lot of the things that are happening for our students is really around a lot of financial aid issues where some of their family members have lost employment, and so they have to figure out how to pay for their balances. And so Bottom Line is supporting with that as well. We've had instances, and I'm sure all three of you can talk about how we support our students around groceries and these turbulence time. Like sometimes they're like, well, we don't know where where groceries, the money for groceries will come from, and we're able to provide that support to a lot of our students. Some folks mentioned like internet and Wi-Fi and technology are some of the things that our students are struggling with, and we are so grateful for our community that have been providing additional resources, additional funding, so that we can make some of these things supported for us. In Massachusetts, I see a question from Cheryl, how many students do we support? We work with over 3,400 students in Massachusetts, and as an org, we work with about 8,000 students from New York, Chicago, and in Massachusetts. The first year class was about 300 students for this year. So that's just how many first years we serve, and then the rest would be in their third, fourth, or fifth year sometimes in college. And then the other thing, the other question that I would like to ask you all, if there are no more questions, I'm hoping I'm not missing any questions, but I think we're doing good. questions for you all. I'm curious to hear, what is your favorite bottom line memory with a student this year that you're willing to share?
Yeah, so my favorite bottom line memory has actually happened in the last 2 weeks, which is really exciting. I recently was able to coach 2 of my seniors through the entire interview process for the State Street Professional Development Program. They are one of our partner employers and are also like one of the top financial firms worldwide. And I helped my students with the initial application, both rounds of interviews, just worked really, really closely with them on that. And actually both of them received offers in the last week. And we're both incredibly excited. I talked with one of them and he was really emotional about it, said like, this is more money than either of my parents have ever made. And this will mean everything for my family and I. And it was just so powerful. And he said like, I couldn't have done this without you. And I replied like, you definitely could have, but like, I'm really grateful that I was able to like be with him through that and help even in the little way that I was able to help, to see how that is going to truly affect him throughout the rest of his life and his family. So, you know, it just, things like that really remind me why I love what I do and why I think this organization is so incredible. So that was my favorite bottom line memory.
Yeah, I can go next. I have many through my year here, but one that I really think back to often is I have a student who is now a senior. I started working with them as a junior, and they, you know, have been juggling so much as a student. They, you know, worked 3 part-time jobs to support themselves and their family. They helped support their family with their younger siblings, and so they were doing a lot of work, and they, I think, were really frustrated at one point, like, I don't know, like, is school worth it? Will this even help? I'm so overwhelmed. And they finally were able to get a co-op opportunity for their senior year, and through that they've like lit up. They, you know, updated me on, you know, we had a phone call once where they like updated me on what was going on, and they just couldn't stop gushing just about how much they love the work that they're doing, and how much they're learning and the connections that they're making and in their preferred industry. And I was just so happy to hear that type of enthusiasm again, because I knew it was really hard to sort of keep going when you're doing so much. And so she was just so happy to like continue, you know, working and to have this type of experience, because that could get, you know, her post-grad opportunity that could also make more money than she's ever made and her mother has ever made. And so they were just so happy to like have that opportunity and to see really her hard work pay off. And I think just to see that joy and that just level of success that student was feeling, I just couldn't be happier for them, and to see just how much they just appreciated everything that was going on. And so I think about that a lot.
For me, I would say this year, so I had a student graduate in May, and when I have literally seen her go through this entire bottom line process, and I think, oh my gosh, I think just, oh my gosh, just seeing her go through it, oh my gosh, as like a senior in high school to a senior in college, and getting that like research position that she really wants, getting ready to go to medical school, and then just having her send me the little message on LinkedIn like, hey Rebecca, like I'm doing well, I hope you're well, thank you for everything. And I'm like, whoa, like I didn't even do anything, I was just here to support you. So definitely seeing it come full circle, you know, because when she first came into the program, I only was the front desk person. I was like, hey, like, I hope your day's going well, like your advisor's coming, like, you know, are you getting ready for prom type deal? So having her be my student in college was honestly one of the best moments of my bottom line career.
That is so awesome. You have me tearing up, Rebecca, and this is like, that's one of my, like, all of you like just touched so many important parts of our program. My heart is bursting, and it is so great to hear about how you're supporting all of our students, and I could hear the passion, and I can see the passion in the work that you all do. Our students are so very lucky to have you all in their lives and to continue to stay in their lives. And I will say one of my favorite memories is to be able to keep in touch with my students and seeing just like the things that they're able to accomplish for their families and their communities, and having them come back as well. And I know, like, at our last staff meeting, like, you all were asking about like, how do we continue to keep our alums engaged? And like, this is why, because we get to see just like how great and powerful the work is that you all are doing and how much they've grown. So thank you so much for sharing this, for taking the time to spend with all of us, and for sharing your heart and your passion and the great relationship that you all three have built with your students. And it's so good to have you. And so I'm so happy to be part of this team. Everyone, it looks like we are coming to a close. I know we can talk about this forever and all day, and there are so many students that we could highlight, but this is it for today.